Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everyone.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer insights and ideas for how emerging small and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can establish and grow their business.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean all aspects involved in establishing and growing brands across channels and platforms. On our show, we bring on guests that are brand founders, leaders, investors, as well as all kinds of suppliers to these emerging brands that are subject matter experts to share their unique insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please follow the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. Let's get to today's episode. Today's show is sponsored by Retail and Response. You've heard it a million times on this podcast. It's not about getting your product on the retail shelf. It's about moving product off the shelf and hitting the retailer's sales velocity hurdles fast. Otherwise, they're going to begin the discontinuation process. Trust me. A slow sales start can be fatal to your brand. You need consumers coming in seeking your brand. You know, the one they heard about on radio or saw on TV. If you think radio or TV advertising is too expensive, you need to speak with our friends at Retail and Response. With over 30 years helping drive hundreds of millions of dollars of sales for their clients, Retail and Response can get your brand on radio and TV for pennies on the dollar. Check them out at retailandresponse.com. That's retailandresponse.com.
Managing retail is complex. The review windows, the buyer relationships, promotions, distributor coordination, the follow-ups that fall through the cracks. And most brands are juggling all of it across multiple tools. VizMerch is the first CRM built specifically for CPG brands. Retailers, category review cycles, promotions, contacts, all connected in one platform. We would like to extend a special offer to the Road to Retail listeners. We are making available the VizMerch Trade Show Tracker for free. Keep track of all of your trade show activities. You can download it now from the show notes in this episode, just in time for Expo West. Gentlemen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of The Road to Retail. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today. And look, there's Tracy Priest. Tracy, how are you this morning, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Great to be here. We've got a great episode today. And Bruce, like always, I just keep showing up when you tell me to. So,
God, I keep changing the times. I got to figure out how to do this solo because I'm so full of myself. But I couldn't do it without you. So thanks for being on, Tracy. Okay, so today, folks, we are joined by Brian Bethke. Brian is the co-founder and CEO of Bear Maple Farms. Brian, welcome and thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks, Bruce. And thank you, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great, great. So as we dive in, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about your background and how you came to sit in this chair, and then we can kind of move right into your latest venture here with Bear Maple Farms.
So I never imagined I'd be in this industry. When I graduated college, I was really excited about going into finance. And I did all the obligatory investment banker meetings with Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers and Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank. And I failed every single interview. Every one of them completely bombed. And so plan B was I went to China and I started working for an international trade company. And through that, I got to learn how to do manufacturing and product sourcing, and then started my guitar pedal company, Pigtronics. We made amplifiers and, all this amazing gear. And the people, this really came from a place of passion. I started playing guitar when I was 12 years old. I was influenced by Pink Floyd and Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin, Paul Simon, Lenny Kravitz. And eventually, all these guys who inspired me to start playing guitar started using our guitar gear. So it was a total full circle moment. And I did that for 15 years. After we did guitar pedals, we acquired a brand called Supro, which had been around since the 1930s, legendary guitar brand. And we went up against brands like Fender and Gibson and Marshall and sold through all the big retailers. It was a big success, sold the business in 2020 and had to figure out what to do next, and ended up going into the beverage industry. So
Okay, so before we talk about Bear Maple Farms, when we finish, I would like Jimmy Page and David Gilmour's email address so that I can, touch base with them. Maybe they could send me a couple
No
of
problem.
tips.
No
Okay,
problem.
great. So tell us about Bear Maple Farms.
So Bear Maple Farms was inspired by the forest. So this was after I sold the music industry business in 2020. The pandemic happened, and we were living in New York City, and of course, New York City, everyone filtered out, and we moved to the Catskills. If you go 3 hours north of New York City, up along the Hudson River, and take a sharp left, that's the Catskills, and it's rolling hills and farmland. It's bucolic and beautiful, lots of forest, and outside of our window, it was all maple trees. So one day I said to my daughter was 6 years old at the time, and I said, Anna, let's go outside. We'll tap the maple trees and make maple syrup. And we go out there. I turn around, and Anna is crouched under the maple tree with her tongue under the spigot and the maple water dripping onto her tongue. She's like, Dad, this is delicious. And so that was kind of and of course, maple water is water filtered through the cells of a tree. And it filters out all the bad stuff and seals it with nutrients, minerals, electrolytes. It's amazing stuff. And it's got 2% sugar content. So that was kind of the first inspiration. But it gets cooler than that because ginseng grows naturally all throughout the maple forest. They're symbiotic plants. And I'd lived in China for 5 years. And so I knew this stuff. I'd seen people lined up and purchasing it in Hong Kong. And so I started grinding up the ginseng and brewing it like a tea in the maple water. And that was the birth of Bear Maple Farms. And Bear Maple Farms because Bear was my nickname growing up. It was what my mom called me.
Oh,
Wow.
there's some bears. There's some bears in the Catskills. They commute
There are a
on the
few,
metro,
a lot of black
Metro
bears.
North. They
Yeah.
commute on the Metro North into New York. Well, it's a good thing. We're always glad when people leave investment banking. You'd probably still be only on like step 8 of the 12-step recovery program. So I think the guitar and functional beverage business is good for you. Hey,
Absolutely.
Tracy, let's talk differentiation.
Absolutely. So, Brian, of course, differentiation in all categories is just critical. So, talk to us a little bit about the meaningful point of difference of Bear Maple Farms in the because beverage is a very competitive set these days, of course, and functional beverage of late has really been very competitive, very hot.
Yeah. So we are Bear Maple Farms is a clean soda with ginseng for focus and clarity. And it's less than 10 calories. It's only 1 gram of sugar. There's no stevia, no erythritol. It's just simple ingredients from nature and very few ingredients. And that's actually surprisingly hard to do in a formulation for a beverage. What really separates us is the ginseng. The ginseng we use is really special. It's the king of adaptogens. It gives calm and focused energy. It's like meditative namaste, focus and clarity. And so yeah, that's kind of on the retail shelf. We are amongst amongst the modern sodas like Olipop and Poppy, which is functional beverage. Spins, which is the company that aggregates all the data throughout the industry. It's likely because modern soda is such a big growing trending category, they'll likely spin it off from functional beverage. So, but that's where we sit on the shelf. We're adjacent to the energy beverages, and yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it's going to get exciting in a good way and maybe a bad way that some of your competitors caught the eye of some of the big CPG companies and got purchased. So as a founder, that's kind of exciting, but as a guy who's still running the business, it's like, dang, those guys have some really deep pockets now.
Yeah. Yeah, but part of that is because the large companies like Pepsi and Coke, and they have a hard time replicating what small businesses do. It's really challenging to be an entrepreneur and a founder and go out and do something that no one's done before. This the stuff building, coming up with the Bare Maple Farms, that was a 3-year process to develop the formulation, then dial in the branding. It takes a lot of time. And how do you fit that into a budget of a corporation? It just doesn't really work so well. So it makes more sense for them to go out and acquire small brands, because small brands, like, they go out of business all the time. It's really challenging. And so they kind of let the entrepreneurs like me take all that risk. And then once we're proven and have a data story, then okay, let's buy this person up, and we'll scale that up even further.
Well, and the interesting thing is, not to be critical of the large CPG companies, one of their biggest assets is their checkbook. So to your point, they can buy
Yeah.
things
True.
that have become successful because in their defense, they're so big and they have their stage gate project management and then they're so big that unless something's gonna really be big, you hear the quote unquote, that won't move the needle and the project gets abandoned. But then along comes Poppy or Bare Maple Farms or Olipop, and they're like, hey, let's do one of those. So let's talk a little bit about the ginseng that you mentioned. That seems to be, one of the things that you're not only are you passionate about, but it drives, as Tracy brought up, your meaningful point of difference. So talk to us about the quest you went on to find one that had all the attributes you were looking for, and the follow up there, Brian, just so you can think about it. If that's tough to source, how do you manage that so that your supply chain keeps rolling?
Ginseng, in the wild, ginseng takes about 6 years to grow and to
Oh,
concentrate those ginsenosides, which are the health compounds that make ginseng so amazing. Ginseng's been around for centuries. It was used by the Native Americans. It's very popular in Asia and China and Korea. It's been used for centuries in those regions, and it's very well known for immunity, mental clarity, and focus, as well as stress resilience. So this is really good stuff, and it's like the original adaptogen. And but there's an issue with it. If you try and go forage it from the forest, that's not really scalable for what we're doing. If you cultivate it in a field, then the root is going to pick up all those pesticides and fertilizers and stuff like that. And that's not in line with the natural organic product that we're trying to produce. So I went on this quest to find the the like perfect ginseng, and there happens to be a compound within ginseng called RG3. It's one of the ginsenosides, and it's a great marker for quality. So I went to every supplier in the entire globe and asked them, can you supply me sustainable ginseng with RG3? And basically all of them said no. And then I finally found it. There was a supplier from China, and I was going to meet up with her at the trade show, the supply side trade show in Secaucus, New Jersey. She flies all the way from China. I'm really thrilled. I get to the booth. She's excited. I'm excited. And she says, which means we can't do it and no one can. It's totally impossible. Your dreams are garbage. Get out of my booth.
my goodness.
And I'm like, I'm walking down the trade show floor and I'm like, okay, I guess that was a fun 3 years, and I'm not going to develop my magical elixir from the forest. But then I turn the corner and there's this sign, and it's got a ginseng root on it. And underneath is all the ginsenosides written out. And right there in the middle is RG3. And I had stumbled upon this supplier who grows ginseng hydroponically, and it speeds up the growth of the ginseng so that we get the equivalent of 10-year-old ginseng in the course of 3 months. And it is a total game changer. That's who I partnered up with to create the formulation, and the rest is history. And it's something I'm very, very proud of because it's so high quality, it's so sustainable, and it really is a game changer.
So did you go back to that woman and in Mandarin tell her, "Oh yeah, I can do this"?
Well, you know, it no one really understood that what what this technology was really doing. I mean, there's 30,000 people at this trade show, and people are walking by the sign, and it's RG3 and RK1 and all these like random names for ginsenicides. No one knows what that is. But I had done all this research. I went out there. There's thousands of papers that written up on ginseng and all these studies with mice and everything. And so I knew about that, and I happened to like understand all this. And so when I started talking with the guy, and he's like, "How do you know all this stuff?" And I'm like, "What you're doing is unbelievable. Like, how do people not understand this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either."
Yeah, I mean, here, everyone you start talking RG3, they think it's the old quarterback for the
Yeah, I
Commander.
was thinking the
He
same thing. Yeah,
he might be
Robert Griffin.
available as a spokesperson for you, but
Yeah, that's too wow. What a great story. So talk to us a little bit about did you do any consumer research, Brian, as you started this venture? And if so, what kind did you do to see, what the opportunity was in the marketplace?
We didn't commission any type of formal study. The thing that I did do is I cooked up a batch in my kitchen, picked out about 30 friends, got some bottles from Amazon, printed up a label, stuck it on there, and sent it out. And that first batch, first off, the bottles leaked everywhere in the packaging. So that was a
Oh,
total disaster. But I called up the people I sent it to and asked, "What do you think?" And all of them said, "This is really, really good. You're onto something." So that that was very encouraging. That was basically the initial market research. And in part, that was inspired. I was working with a business coach at the time, and I went to my business coach and said, "Ben, I'm ready. Let's do this. I have the formulation. Let's just go to a big pre-production run." And he said, "Brian, don't do that. You want to make your mistakes small. And this first run, even though you think you have it dialed in, you're going to learn from this. And not everything is going to go perfect the first time. So make it as small as possible so that you can de-risk when you go forward and scale and start to spend big money. You want to make mistakes small very early on."
well, hopefully, as time has gone on, you realize that Ben might have really saved your bacon there with
Oh
that
yeah.
comment.
Oh yeah. Some of the best advice I've ever gotten.
yeah. Aim small, miss small.
And
So,
go fast.
Yep.
right. What do you say, Bruce? All gas, no brakes?
That's
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. So, Brian, talk to us a little bit about as you entered into brick and mortar, like how did you decide what retailer to go to first, and what did you think through as far as, what was the profile of the retailer that you wanted to really work with and partner with first?
Yeah, we went into retail fairly early on, and the decision around that was that's what I knew from the music industry. We were very, very successful going up against brands like Fender and Gibson and Marshall, and we did it through Sweetwater and Guitar Center and Sam Ash. So we understood the retail channel.
Hmm.
But buyers in the music industry versus buyers in consumer packaged goods, a little bit different. First off,
Totally, yeah, totally different.
yeah, and consumer packaged goods for beverage, it's a $300 billion market versus music industry is 30 times smaller. And in a retail store for the music industry, there's basically one buyer for all the products. for the grocery store, it's category managers that we're dealing with. And that was totally new to me. And it took a while to understand that category managers, that term is really important. They're not so much buying as they are managing a portfolio of products on the shelf, and they're optimizing for velocity and gross margin and basket size. And that took me a long time to sink into my brain and really understand that and it's even when they talk about innovation, they're not talking about a product that no one's ever seen before. They're talking about, we want a product that doesn't cannibalize existing products on the shelf and expands the basket size at checkout. So that was counterintuitive to me. Like, it's not how I thought of innovation. It's very data driven, and category managers, they'll try the product and they're passionate about their job, but ultimately they decide to bring on a product because they're looking at the data story and they're looking for proof points that this is going to be successful and drive sales on their shelf in their store.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned what one of Tracy and my bumper stickers is, that category managers are much more interested in how their category does than how your brand does.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
logical. That's how they, it's how they get compensated. So Brian, I just want to dig in a little bit on Tracy's question. So who was that first retailer that you decided to, roll the dice with, or they rolled the dice on you?
We were very early on, we had a broker and we were pursuing Whole Foods and Kroger and basically all the top tier one national retailers. And we didn't have that data story. So, and these are complex long-term sales. It can take 15 different conversations before you actually get on shelf. And then once you do get a yes, it's going to take 6 to 12 months for the product to actually go through the distribution and actually make it onto the shelf. And they only make these decisions at certain times of the year because they only review the categories at certain times of the year. So when we weren't getting onto those shelves, we took a step back and we said, okay, how many independent stores would we need to get into to equal one Whole Foods? And it's actually not that many. So we picked a region, we picked the Northeast, that's our backyard. And our idea was, let's just dominate this. And so we work closely. KeHE is our natural channel distributor in that region and nationally as well. And we worked with a lot of the like NCG and Infra, which are the buying co-ops that the independent stores love. And we did really, really well. And now we are top 10 functional beverage brand in the Northeast. And we're one of the fastest growing brands in that region. And that's a real data point that we can then take and bring to the tier one retailers. And that will make a big difference. And we can take that model and expand nationally, continue to expand nationally as well.
Wow. Great story. Love that.
You have learned well, young Skywalker.
Yes.
So Brian, you guys kind of have done things a little differently than many of the brands we speak with. A lot of them will start with their own website or through Amazon and then kind of cut their teeth and then try retail. You did it the other way, and it's obviously working for you. But now as you start thinking about e-commerce, tell the folks a little bit about what's going into that thought process and how are you going to, manage price points and pricing. And because let's face it, beverage is heavy. So that's going to drive your shipping costs, which can make profitability a bit of a challenge. So how are you and your team thinking through this?
We went into Amazon fairly early as well. So Amazon is about 25% of our sales currently. The thing to understand about Amazon, which I didn't fully understand in the beginning, was that if you're not at the top of the search page on Amazon, you're not going to get very many sales. that's what it's all about. And over and over and over, I kept hearing the term ROAS. And I'm like, what the heck is ROAS? And it's return on ad spend. It is the ROI of Amazon. And lots of brands out there will spend lots and lots of money to get at the top of the page, and all the profits on Amazon end up going back into ad spend. It's a tough thing to master and to optimize. So that channel it can be very, very successful if done right. And then D2C, we're just currently launching and leaning into that. The whole playbook with D2C is that you want to collect customer emails, develop a database, and then you use automations and campaigns and retargeting to drive people to either your website or Amazon to get them to purchase your product. And that's a whole strategy. We're using Shopify and Klaviyo, which is, I believe, a lot of brands out there utilize. And then once you combine those activities with influencers and social media, you can build a $10 million brand without ever touching a retail shelf. And arguably, we probably should have started out that way, but I love doing things the hard way. So,
Sounds like it.
But there's a benefit to that as well, because having those direct conversations with the big buyers, we went through the fire, and that honed us into what we are. It helped us go through that whole journey of refining our branding, understanding how we talk to our customers and how we talk to the category managers.
Yeah, that's all great. And, we're kind of blessed and cursed with our career pasts, right? We know what we've learned, but knowing what you've seen work in other places a lot of times can translate. So you learned kind of the hard way, as you said, going brick and mortar first, but you learn like the magic words with buyers. You learn the metrics they're looking for. And we'll talk about your marketing in a bit, but you'll learn which messages are resonating and moving the needle. Test and learn, test and learn. So Brian, you touched on this, and it's really important for folks to understand. You mentioned KeHE. When a brand like yours is considering hiring a sales agent or a broker, what attributes were you looking for in that broker? Someone who really knew, functional beverage, someone with a particular relationship at a retailer or channel you were focused on, or by happenstance, you met someone at a trade show and you guys kind of hit it off. I mean, how did you guys go through that?
I talked to a number of different brokers, and it was kind of random. I wish I had known what I knew now. The thing about brokers is you want to be very mindful as a small emerging brand working with brokers. The brokers have a limited social capital to spend with category managers, and they're generally not going to expend that on very small brands that are unproven. They are going to focus on their big winners, which, that's what you do as a salesperson. So it can be very difficult to be successful with a broker as a young brand. We're no longer using a traditional sales broker. And I'm a big fan of using third-party sales reps and building really good relationships with your KeHE reps and your UNFI reps. Those are the people who are going to do the on the ground, going to the stores and the tough work on the ground that really builds the brand. Most brokers are not really going to do that for you. And brokers, they often charge $5,000 to $15,000 retainer plus 5% of sales. It's a big spend. So if you're not getting the ROI on it, it can really hurt.
Okay, so let's stop right there and dig in just a little deeper. Can you help the folks understand, Brian, how a broker is compensated, especially like when you're just starting out, and as you've been quite candid with us, when you didn't really have the data story. So for someone out there who's thinking, hey, my idea is getting a little traction, I'm not really a CPG salesperson, so I'm kind of green. I'm looking for help. What can they expect to hear when the conversation ultimately gets around to, what you're going to have to pay this organization to work with you?
Bro, the idea behind brokers is that this is a 30-person plus sales team that already knows your industry, already has the relationships with all the buyers. And for small founders like me, that's the dream, because it takes a lot of work to build that sales team. If I can
Absolutely.
just like get plugged into it and instantly pull a trigger and everything just happens and works, it's amazing. That's the theory. In practicality, brokers work very well with big brands because they're just taking they just work on a sales commission type of basis. And when you have millions and billions of dollars worth of sales, that commission funds everything and salespeople are really happy. It all works well. But if you're a young brand, instead of just sales commission, they have to charge a retainer on a monthly basis because they've got to train everyone up on your brand. There's sales materials, there's all the presentations they have to do. And initially, when they start working on your brand, they're not going to see any profits from it. So they have to have that retainer. And they'll often pair that up with a commission on top of that. So that's usually the payment structure and the theory behind it. And when it works really well. When it doesn't work, it just doesn't work.
So before I kick that to Tracy, can you just one more question here, Brian? At some point, does the retainer go away when you hit a certain sales level, or is that kind of built in perpetuity?
Yes, most brokers, once you hit a certain threshold, the retainer goes away, or they work into the contract that your sales, once the 5% commission reaches a certain level, the retainer
Goes away.
is within that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Tracy?
Yep. So talk to us a little bit about what you've learned about managing a broker or a sales agent, and maybe some communication techniques, and maybe tell us a little bit about realistic expectations.
Yeah, the number one thing with brokers is just having really clear training for their salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that I've found, fostering those relationships and getting the salespeople excited about the product and excited to making sure that they have the tools that they need when they go to their sales meetings to make it easy. They know those three things that they need to focus on, that are the brand attributes that are going to close the deal and set them up for success in those aspects.
It makes sense. Clear
Yeah.
expectations.
So Brian, one other thing on brokers, then we're going to get into some marketing discussion. Well, what would be your advice to our emerging brand audience if they start running into a rough spot with their broker? Is it, quickly get the gun out and pull the trigger? Do you try to work through it? I mean, if you smell a little smoke, how do you start kind of troubleshooting versus just immediately saying time to change?
I had given it a year plus, and then I pulled back from the broker. Uh, I I think I probably should have done that sooner, and I I definitely went into a broker earlier than I should have. But then again, the other benefit of a broker is that they have all the administration staff to handle all that paperwork with the when you do a submission, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of
Mhm.
paperwork. And if you don't have someone internally do it who knows what they're doing, it's fantastic to have that broker. They'll also build sales plans for you and sales projections. They, if done well and managed well, they can be very, very powerful. So, sometimes it may just be about finding the right fit, making sure you have a broker who is really on your side and managing them effectively.
Well, that's great. And the other thing Tracy and I like to point out about brokers is if you're trying to go it alone, let's just pick a company out of the sky, Whole Foods. If you're trying to go it alone, you may get one or two meetings a year with Whole Foods. But if you're working with a broker or sales agent, they're probably in those buildings maybe a couple of times a week. So they're hearing the rumors of buyer changes or line review delays or this new program coming from Whole Foods. So they can be your eyes and ears because they're in the building with much more frequency. And then to the other point you made, which Tracy and I like to drive home, they have a lot of category expertise. If you pick one that's done a lot of beverage, they know how it should be shipped. They know the DCs where there's trouble, where stuff just seems to get damaged a lot. I mean, there's all kinds of things they can help you with. All right, Brian, so let's talk about marketing. How do you and your team promote Maple Farms? You've mentioned influencers, but what tactics or marketing vehicles do you use? And then how do you judge the success or failure, hate to use the F word, but failure of those tactics? And how do you course correct?
Because we're focused on the retail sales channel, demos is the primary thing we do. That's the highest ROI activity you can do, with a caveat here. So I'm always coming up with these massive marketing ideas, and I have a good friend, Janice Greenwald, who is a fractional CMO, and I always go to her and I say, Janice, this is what I want to do. And she says, Brian, pause right there. Until you have 70% ACV, you can't do any of that stuff. Focus on demos, cans in hands. You want to drive people within the stores that your product is already in to go to the shelf and buy it. And then once you hit that 70% ACV, then that opens the door for a lot of other marketing activities. And ACV, that basically just means market penetration, the market saturation, the amount of stores that you have within a certain area. And that's and beyond that, we also do events. We love events because you find a good targeted event and then you give out samples and coupons to drive people to your website or Amazon, and that can be very effective as well.
Yeah, and another thing, folks, you've heard the term before, but Brian's description's a good one. But ACV also is kind of a code for availability.
Yeah.
You can't sell what no one can find. Tracy?
Yeah. So let's talk about investors. So Brian, tell us about what advice you would give a small emerging brand taking on an investor and maybe what they should be aware of. What advice would you give somebody?
Having done the music industry and CPG, I've done both bootstrap style, where I was just like using my own money and like pinching pennies. And I've also done with this business, I raised a seed round, and the idea is to go to a Series A and raise institutional funding. I raised a $2 million seed round using a safe note. Why $2 million? Because early on, you want to be very mindful about every percentage that you give away early on is magnified in later rounds. So the challenge for me was, how little can I raise and still de-risk the business in a meaningful way and go to that Series A. And the playbook with traditional venture capital is that you raise the seed round and then you go to a Series A. We would be targeting like $8 to $10 million in revenue. And then you have subsequent funding rounds where you need to be raising larger and larger tranches of capital at higher and higher valuations all the way up to the exit. And it's really, really challenging. It's this is again something that you just want to be completely eyes open when you get into it. If you do go the traditional VC route, fundraising take up about 50% of a founder's time. Yeah. It's really a time suck, potentially. It can also, being well funded can be a total game changer as well. So if it's managed well, it can be fantastic. But also, you don't want to go into large institutional funding rounds without a clear vision of how you're going to grow that business and scale it, because they have investors as well, those funds, and they need to create a return on investment for them. And they're not going to sit on their hands forever and wait. And you never want to have a down round or a bridge round, because that's just a bad signal to investors. So you want to have a clear vision, to be committed to scaling up. And it's really challenging, but also at the same time, it's gratifying. I mean, to have investors who are aligned, it's a total honor, because here are people who are who understand the vision and are in love with it just as much as I am. And that's such a cool thing. It's a total honor to be the steward of a brand that is focused on having healthy impact on minds and bodies, and sustainable for the planet, and to be able to benefit people and make your friends millions of dollars all at the same time is a dream.
And they're cheering you on, and they believe in your vision, and that's got to be an awesome feeling for sure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Folks, a couple of things Brian said that you've heard from other guests, especially the investors or the investment bankers we've had on. Giving away equity or a piece of your business too early for too little is some of the most expensive money you'll ever raise. And they pointed out other venues, whether it's bank loans or there's grants out there. There's all kinds of things you can look at. No one wants to risk their marriage by secretly putting 3 mortgages on their house or something. But Tracy and I have heard all kinds of crazy stories.
Yes.
And the other thing Brian pointed out is, once you start taking on quote unquote more professional money, and he can maybe speak to this in 1 second, you're reporting. He said raising money takes up a lot of time. You start taking other people's money, they're not friends and family. As Brian said, they want a return, and they want to return within a certain period of time. If Brian's goal is to build this business and give it off to his daughter, that's going to eliminate a lot of potential investors, because, they want to work with him, build his brand, and move along within a finite period of time. So you really need to be careful about how much of your business you're giving away early, and then understand and perhaps exhaust all the other avenues that might be out there. So Brian, you mentioned that you've taken on, this seed round. Can you just tell the folks a little bit, and maybe everyone you're working with so far is you kind of know them, but how has it changed your time in terms of like reporting back to them, whether it's a formal monthly letter or a quarterly phone call? Do you have some people that maybe have turned out to be a little more hands-on than you had thought, and they're emailing or calling you, twice a week? How's it going? How's it going?
Yeah, I do quarterly investor updates. And like you're alluding to, there's some time that needs to go into that. But it's also, I enjoy interacting with investors, and I've been very intentional along the way about bringing on people who are fully aligned with our business and with how we're approaching this. I also had a minimum investment threshold that was fairly high, so that kind of culled out a lot of the investors who aren't interested in writing larger checks. There were some checks that I turned down, because if an investor is difficult or really high maintenance when everything is going well, then you can be pretty sure that they're going to make your life a living hell when you hit your first challenge. So that was important to me. And it's hard to do for founders, because you have to go through so many different conversations and calls, and it can take 500 conversations to raise that seed round. So do I really want to turn down this check? And To this day, I'm still conflicted over it, but I, I think it was a very, very wise thing to be selective and be smart about the investors who I'm bringing on. And that makes those conversations really fun and enjoyable because these are people who I love talking to, and I enjoy bringing them along the journey, telling them the stories about what's going on, how we're thinking, and they come back to me and they bring advice and they bring resources. So they're part of the business in a way that can be very, very meaningful and very effective. And it's just a total joy to have.
So Brian said a couple of interesting things here, folks, you've heard before. First off, the word no can never leave your vocabulary as an entrepreneur, whether it's an agreement with a retailer that's just tilted too much in their favor, or someone who wants to hand him a check that either he has a bad vibe over or he just doesn't need it at the time. We've had entrepreneurs on the show that say, all I need is a check. I know exactly what I'm doing. Well, the people that'll give you money and never ask about it, they're probably related to you or going way in the Wayback Machine to the Adams family. They're like Gomez Adams, and they just have a drawer full of money. And Brian's kind of interesting, but those people are few and far
Oh,
between.
absolutely.
But so understanding when you take that money, it comes with responsibilities to report back, whether it's formal, like Brian does with his investor letter, or the texts, phone calls, inbound emails that he may or may not appreciate every day. We won't push him to answer on that one. Tracy?
Yeah. So, Brian, as we're rounding third and heading home, tell our audience who's had the greatest influence on your career and what that person did that has stayed with you over the years.
My biggest influence has been my wife. She she works in finance. And of course, I went through all those finance interviews and I didn't get the job. And now I know why, because they interviewed her and they're like, we don't want this guy. We want her. And what she does is so intense and functions on such a high level, and I'm constantly going to her for advice. And as a founder and entrepreneur, it's so important to have that person who's always with you and willing to go to bat for you and support you no matter what. The only thing I can analogize entrepreneurship to is jumping out of an airplane and building your parachute on the way down.
Way down.
And when that parachute opens and your feet hit the ground, you want to be able to look over to the person who's been with you that whole time and say, wow, that was freaking unbelievable and amazing and so crazy. I can't believe we just did that. And we did it together. And that's such a gratifying, such an amazing feeling, and something that is something that is very deep in my heart. I love bringing my family along that journey and including my friends, and that's what makes it so rewarding for me.
Well, that's great. Brian, I just got a text from your life insurance agent who does not like the skydiving story at all. Your premium might be going up. So, okay. All right, Brian. So last topic here, and it's vital to national security, possibly. Who is your favorite band, brand, or sports team, and why do you support them, or like them, or enjoy them?
So, not sports team, but individual athlete, Mikaela Shiffrin. I grew up alpine ski racing. My 10-year-old daughter is a racer now too, and we love Mikaela. She is not just like really good. She's the most winningest alpine skier in history, male or female. So that's she's going to be racking up some medals in the Olympics.
I'm going to have to follow her
yeah.
when I start watching the Olympics on Friday.
Yep.
Well, that's great. All right. I am not letting you go without one band comment, darn it.
I knew he could not let that go.
But I do like Mikaela Shiffrin. She's awesome.
Yep. Yeah. So band what, like I grew up, Pink Floyd was my favorite. I love David Gilmour. That was really the first inspiration for me. And Uh, that is what I'm continually trying to do is write that perfect guitar solo, create that perfect song that brings all those people together and all those instruments together in that perfect band where everything just hits harmony and it just resonates deep down in everyone's soul.
So I'm a hack guitar player, still not that great, but a couple of years ago I'm in the music store and I'm over going through the music and I'm going through some Pink Floyd stuff because like you, I'm, listening to that. And after like my second trip, one of the salespeople comes over, he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I like Pink Floyd. I think I might buy this and try to play some." And he looks at me, he goes, "He's David Gilmour and you're not."
Yeah.
Damn it, I bought it anyway. Okay, so Brian, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you, learn more about Bear Maple Farms, and then I believe you have a very generous offer to make to the audience.
Yes.
Drink Bear Maple is our website. You can reach out to us at info@drinkbearmaple.com. And yeah, please go on Amazon, buy a case of your favorite flavor. Yuzu citrus is my personal favorite. It's really good. Lemongrass mint is very special. That was inspired by the lemongrass and mint growing in my garden in the Catskills. And ginger is our best seller. And cran raspberry is the brand new flavor, and that's quickly becoming our best seller. So, and if you go on Amazon, use code Road to Retail, and you'll get 25% off. And thank you, Tracy and Bruce. This was
So the
fantastic.
folks, so Brian, the folks just need to put road the number 2 retail, or do they have to put a little more info in there? We'll put
That's
this in
correct.
the show notes, but better
Yes.
coming from you.
Yep. Yeah. Road the number 2 and retail at checkout, and you'll get 25% off on Amazon.
All right. Well, thank you so much. All right, Tracy, the big finish. I
The
hope
big
your arm
finish.
is loose.
Yes, absolutely. Brian, thank you so much. This was great, great insight. Love the brand story and everything that you shared, giving great advice to our small emerging brand audience. So, audience, thanks for joining us today. Please continue to follow us on our Apple and Spotify channels, also YouTube. We post every Tuesday. And also, we have a website with all of our episodes on it, and that is www.roadtoretail.com. And again, Brian, thank you for the wonderful offer. We really do appreciate it, and I know our audience appreciates it as well. So thank you again. Great episode, Bruce. Good to see you.
Thank you again. Good luck out there, folks.